What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and we have got a great episode in store for you guys tonight. We're going to discuss Mac Jones and the Patriots and their horrific loss to the Dallas Cowboys. 38-3 was the final, and a lot of storylines are coming out of that game. So we'll make sure to discuss that, as well as paying tribute to Tim Wakefield, who unfortunately lost his battle with brain cancer this past weekend. We'll discuss that. And we'll also talk about the Celtics acquiring Jrue Holiday. We'll talk about that trade and what that means for the Eastern Conference, as well as the Milwaukee Bucks acquiring Damien Lillard. So it's going to be an episode packed full of all sorts of different sports takes, but really looking forward to it. As always, I'm glad to be joined along on this episode by a good friend. He is a returning guest of the show, Mr. John Warren. Glad to have you back on the program with us today. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Glad to be back on the show, and very excited to get down to the wire today.
Absolutely, man. So, uh, this episode obviously came about very last minute. I've been trying to get back into a good schedule of doing shows, but with grad school and everything going on, it's been tough to remain consistent. But we make do and we try to figure it out. Obviously, I'm not in the Koffler Center right now. I'm in my own townhouse dorm room right now. So I'm just making do with what I can. But John, you texted me while I was at dinner, or actually you called me when I was at dinner. I was with a couple of people from my undergraduate. I was with Jake, Goose, and Tyler, and I picked it up and I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on with John. And he just tells me, Brian, I want to rant. And I was like, rant about what? And he goes, the Patriots and a whole lot of things. So, John, I'll probably let you start off with it. It was an ugly game for the Pats. It's the worst loss in the Bill Belichick era. What are your thoughts on just this game and what this means for everything going forward?
Well, I guess just to start, earlier in the year, I made some very bold predictions, some very aggressive predictions, and you know, man of my word, they right now, quarter way through, do not look very promising whatsoever. I can almost fully guarantee you that everything I said is probably not going to happen. Besides the Ravens, they're doing all right now. But besides that, the Pats are terrible, man.
John, just to give some just to give some reference, what were some of the predictions that you had made about this team going into the year and that have obviously been proven wrong? Like I know that I had some questions about this team and whether they would be able to compete, but what were some of your predictions at the start of this year?
So for starters, I thought this team was going to be a very tough team to beat. I thought we were going to go 10-7. It looks like we're going to go about maybe five and whatever. 5 wins is generous, honestly.
Really? So you've
Um,
jumped off the bandwagon that much. You've slashed their win total in half.
yeah, 100%. I said Juju Smith-Schuster is a very good wide receiver. We have yet to see that at all. It looks like his knee is about to be gone, and we took what, like $36 million in cap that Jacoby Myers, who is currently balling
Yeah.
right now with the Raiders. That one sucks. And then on top of all of that, Mac Jones just looks awful. He looks terrible. He looks confused. He looks pathetic, honestly. He looks really pathetic. It looks
Wow.
like the Patriots do not have an identity whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I got to ask you. I mean, and I tend to agree with a lot of what you're saying. I mean, Mac Jones this year has just looked inept. He's obviously regressed from where he was as a rookie. I thought that at least the benchmark that I wanted to see from Mac Jones this year was, some people were saying he's got to take a step forward from his rookie season. He's got to get back to what, he's got to get better than that. And for me, that wasn't even the benchmark. I just wanted him with a competent offensive coordinator, which I believed Bill O'Brien was coming back into this offense. I just wanted Mac Jones to get back to his rookie form. And if obviously there's, some mistakes that happen in there, some costly interceptions, I was willing to eat those bullets and just say, you know what, if we can just get this kid back on track and, just save him from the hell that was last year under Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, I can call it a win and maybe go into his contract year hoping to really, see him progress forward. But it just hasn't, worked out for him so far. Some people are saying that the offense is better now than it was under the Josh McDaniels. I tend to disagree with that. Maybe that team overall was better, and maybe you could say that this offense is, a little bit, better in some spots, but Mac Jones just looks like he's seeing ghosts out there. I mean, there's that famous quote from Sam Darnold when he was playing the Patriots, and he said he was seeing ghosts, and then the Pats defense started to call themselves the boogeymen. Mac Jones literally is terrified back there, in my opinion, and he doesn't have the talent to escape the pressure that's being put on him right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's really sad to see, because as much as the offensive line is bad, the wide receivers are lackluster. The play calling has been skeptical at best. I mean, poor Ramondre Stevenson back there is
Getting
like
killed.
getting killed and getting like 13 targets
Yeah.
for like 40 yards at most, which is nuts. And it just seems crazy to think that a couple of years ago we were legit and hopeful, and it was always, well, we can always figure out a way. And well, now there is no way.
Yeah.
There's been closed off. The division is now elite. I would say, honestly, right now, if the Jets and the Patriots were to play each other in the Super Bowl, right now, the Jets would win and they would flat out kill the Pats. And it
Really.
wouldn't even be close.
And why do you take that as your comparison? Obviously, Super Bowl between those teams impossible because of the conferences, but you're saying if the stakes are high enough that the Jets would come out on top. What is your reasoning for that? Obviously, the Patriots beat them last week, but I'll let you explain.
I think honestly that the Jets, as much as they like it sucked losing Aaron Rodgers and everything, it looks like they're at least trending in the right direction. It looks like they at least have a solid defense. The Pats, as soon as you lose Christian Gonzalez, who is a rookie, by the way, completely fall apart. I mean, the one good thing we had going for us was in total, like the Pats defense realistically gave up 10 points. Mac Jones gave up about spotted the Cowboys about like 28 points the other game. He had that fumble, went into the touchdown. He
I
threw
mean,
a pick six.
I'll at least give
Just
him the 14 for the pick six and the fumble. The other ones I'd have to go back and take a look at, but yeah, that pick six, ugly. You're outside the pocket. You know that you're not a mobile guy, but you're getting flushed out there anyways. You had to make something happen, and it just looks embarrassing. And then the pick six too, that was ugly. Just going across here, yeah, just not a great look for Mac Jones there. And like you said, Christian Gonzalez, that was a terrible loss for us too. Especially because he was doing so well to start his rookie campaign. With all the complaints I've had for this Patriots team to start this year, Christian Gonzalez really wasn't one of them. In fact, he was one of the guys I was really high on, going from preseason into this year. And now to see him go out with a dislocated shoulder, I mean, luckily it isn't anything with the knees, so you don't have to really worry about speed, but you just don't know what the timetable is going to be for a return like that. And it makes you nervous. Just
yeah.
what is this secondary going to do? Because as soon as he went out in that Dallas Cowboys game, Miles Bryant, I think, was put on CD Lamb first play after he goes down, straight down the field, fly route to CD, easy touchdown for Dallas. And I'm like, if that's what our secondary is going to look like with Jonathan Jones and Jack Jones and Marcus Jones all out, like, I don't know if we were going to be able to really stop anything.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part, that it really seems like you really have to blow up the team. Like, and as much as it's like sad to say, like offensively, we have no one. Defensively, we're
I mean,
usually okay. That game we got embarrassed.
I
It's a
mean, John,
tough loss.
John, I won't say that we have no one on offense. I think that we have weapons on offense. They're just not being used efficiently. I think that I would say that, like, I would totally agree with you. Juju Smith-Schuster, horrible pickup. The knee is gone. I mean, at this point, I would just say get him into surgery and just try to salvage something for the next like 2 years of that contract. Because at this point, you're just playing out the string. You're waiting for his knee to go, and then he can have whatever reconstructive surgery he needs to have on it, just so he can get on the field again next year. At this point, I would just put him under the knife and just sacrifice this season in that part of the contract because it's not working. And then
Yeah.
for other weapons that are bringing out, when Ramondre Stevenson has a chance, I think he's, one of the better backs in the league. And then Hunter Henry, I think, is a great tight end, but he just isn't being utilized correctly. So I think they have the weapons there, but what we're realizing is that I just don't think Mac Jones is the guy to lead this team over the hump. And It sucks to say because I had a lot of praise about Mac Jones coming out of Alabama, coming into the league, and I thought he really could be, like a good, like a lot of people talked about Tom Brady being a system quarterback. I really thought Mac Jones would be a legitimate system quarterback. You build the team around him, he at least can just get the job done, not F anything up and get you over the hump. I don't think he can do that now, which sucks because I had that faith in him, but I just don't think he can do that now. And the other thing too now you have going against Mac Jones is his whole reputation is getting tarnished by everyone right now. I don't know if you've been seeing this, but everyone is coming after Mac Jones for these kind of just like dirty plays that he's been doing. I know he playing against the Jets, he like hit like Sauce Gardner like in the nuts, dating back to last year. I think it was Brian Banks or no, Brian Burks, I believe, of the Carolina Panthers. Basically, like Mac Jones like twisted his ankle last year purposely when he was on the ground, and he's almost starting to develop the reputation of like the Grayson Allen of football, to where he's just pulling out these dirty plays because he knows he doesn't have the physical traits to make up for it.
Right. And that's the unfortunate part too, is that
Yeah.
there's nothing really positive to take out of the situation.
No,
It's
and
almost like you have to just dump, tank, and restart because there's no even hump for this team to get over. I
no.
realistically think it's really, we were mid before this. Like we were like a middle of the road team. Now we're really like in Chicago, right? They
Yeah.
look terrible. At least they could have potentially the number 1 and number 2 overall pick.
Yeah. With the
That's a
Patriot,
really good, there's a really good thing to look forward to. With the Patriots, what are we really looking forward to?
there's not much because unfortunately, John, you think this team's going to be able to leak out maybe 5, 6 wins. I unfortunately think that they're going to be able to somehow just by the grace of God get some more than that. And looking at the schedule right now, it's tough to really pinpoint. I think that the Saints coming up this week, you have I believe Jameis as the backup facing him. And listen, Jameis is better than your average backup quarterback, but I think that hopefully you should be able to get that done. So I think that you can take care of them. Raiders, I'm not gonna give that to them. I think you might be able to maybe surprise the Commanders, but they're even looking pretty good as of late.
Right.
The Colts with a rookie quarterback over in Germany. Those international games are so weird. Maybe you can, catch him off guard and make something happen. And then the Giants obviously have been looking terrible, so I think you can get a win there. Steelers have had some inconsistencies, but and the coaching, between Belichick and Tomlin is, pretty good coaching duel. I think it'll just come down to who schemes up each other better in that. And then I do think that if, Aaron Rodgers isn't back for the Jets, which is another topic in it of itself, I think that you can pull out a win against them in the last week as well as the Denver Broncos. So I don't know how many wins
Right.
that'll total up to, but I think that's around maybe, like 7, maybe 8 wins, which will likely land you in the middle of the draft. Which for the Patriots, like, sure, the middle of the draft is fine. And like, you can get some decent players there. Obviously, we got Christian Gonzalez last year, more in the middle of the draft. But if you really want to get those impact players, guys that are going to change your team and franchise, year one in, those guys typically come at the top of the draft. And if the Patriots are just going to be in this mediocrity, to do an NBA comparison, you're almost what the 76ers were before they decided to go of the trusting the process route, where you had Andre Iguodala and all these other players that they were just, sometimes barely squeaking into the playoffs, just sometimes missing it. And
Yeah.
you knew it wasn't going anywhere, but they were just throwing it out there, hoping something would happen. And eventually they said, you know what? This isn't working. We're going to trade these pieces away. We're going to tank, and we'll see you guys in like 5 years. Now, I hate that. I don't like tanking, but with the Patriots right now, it's getting to the point where I just don't know what direction this team can go in without, seeing a potential rebuild on the horizon.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's just I saw this stat and it was Mac Jones QBR last
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yeah.
His QBR was a 14.8.
Oh my God.
If
Jesus
you
Christ.
the QBR of taking a football and throwing it directly into the ground every single snap is like a 13.5.
Oh my God.
So realistically, it needs to start at the head. And as much as you hate to say it, you need a quarterback to end up like it isn't like one of those like plug and play type systems with
No.
the 49ers. The 49ers are a really well coached team, and arguably Brock Purdy is a top 10 QB this year,
Yeah.
you can say.
Yeah. And
On the other
go
side
ahead.
of it, we have a Mac Jones where you honestly need like a Lamar in that system or someone else. You need a QB dominant guy to get you over the hump, get you over those tough situations. If you have a good quarterback, we win that Dolphins game.
Yeah.
We win a couple of those earlier games. And going into this, you're still a tough team to beat, but comes down to that, the play calling, it's like 3rd and 2, and we're tossing it deep for whatever reason, and we're not trying to hit Hunter Henry over the middle. Like when it's a mismatch, it's just so many frustrating things going on.
No, yeah, John, I tend to agree with you. And it makes you think like Bill Belichick is likely still building this team like he has a quarterback that can bail him out, like he did with Tom Brady for so many years. For, outside of Randy Moss and a couple other guys, like people were clamoring and just saying, "Hey, Bill, can we get Tom some help here instead of just like drafting like all like these like stocky, just like short like slot receivers? Can we not do this like every single time? Can we get him some legit offensive help?" And I know drafting Gronkowski was great, and you got Moss and you got Welker and you had all these other pieces come in, but there were plenty of times where Tom Brady just had to will the offense, over the hump, like in 2013 when the O-line was complete garbage. We had no one really available as an offensive weapon. Brady got them to that championship game by just his own presence alone. Like I don't know how he did it, but he managed to pull it out. And I think that, if you had a guy like a Tom Brady, like a Patrick Mahomes in this offense, yeah, they could probably bail you out of some of these games. You don't have that. And to go off that, I think that you could take a Mac Jones and put him in a 49er system or a system that is similar to that where it's built around the talent, and he could probably be pretty successful. I think that, even though the arm strength isn't all that, I think you put him on a team like the 49ers, which are obviously stacked, but I think that you put him on a team like that and he'd be probably talked about maybe as well as Brock Purdy is. Like I do believe that. And that's the unfortunate thing, but I just don't know with this offense if it's going to really work for him. And I think that, maybe he's gotten a raw deal and it's all this stuff, but I just don't think with the way this offense is playing right now, I don't think I don't think he's the answer.
Yeah, and a certain trend you see going around is with Bill Belichick honestly on the hot seat, and
Yeah.
I he is. It sucks to say, but he is.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
go ahead.
in games without Brady, he has one playoff win and he's gone 36-38.
Yeah.
With Brady and all those wins and all those Super Bowls, 219-64.
Damn.
It's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
It sucks, but I think honestly, Belichick can build your defense. He can do all that, but that's offensively, he's always needed help. It seems like.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. I've never questioned the coaching acumen of Bill Belichick, probably until this game. I've always called into question his ability to, be a general manager for the franchise. It's always, and that's the double-edged sword of Bill Belichick, is that if you want Bill Belichick to run your franchise, he is going to run every aspect of the franchise. Like you're not going to have just a general manager calling the shots and then the coaches on the field running, just having to deal with whatever players are put around him. Bill Belichick builds this thing from the ground up. So in the end, it does start with him. And
Right.
and typically I was just like, yeah, you wish you could take away the general manager position from Bill, but he's such a good coach that you'll just let him figure it out. It's gotten to the point now where some of the moves he's made as the GM, his coaching, for as good as it still is, doesn't make up for it anymore. It's gotten so bad to where the product just isn't to where it should be. And no matter how good of a coach Bill Belichick is, it's tough to win with this little talent.
Yeah, it's really hard for him to just keep trying to see him spin yarn into gold every single time because you can only do it so many times.
Yeah.
Because he can take all this late round talent, but how many first round wide receivers are we going to whiff on? How
Yeah.
many? It almost seems like after this certain time that you almost have to try to start to blow up the system. Like
Yeah.
try it's time to give someone else, I think, the reins, and I think Bill knows that. I think Kraft's gonna start to say that as he wants to win because realistically, like he's getting older as well. He probably wants to see a couple more wins while he's here and
Mhm.
everything else. And it just sucks.
Yeah, it just feels like as long as Bill is still here, nothing's really gonna change. It's still gonna just be this level of mediocrity, which
Yeah.
which sucks to say. Um, I will say this though, like the thing that just Bill Belichick is still doing with the team, he's still building a franchise like it's 20 years ago, which you can't do anymore. The game has gotten is not like guys aren't as big as they used to be. A lot of guys they're smaller, but they're just more athletic and they're quicker. Where, in like say in the 90s and early 2000s, you didn't need to have like a receiver with blazing speed as long as they could, they were just solid at catching the football, they could run solid routes, you could get away with that. You need speed and you need that athleticism now. It's just how the game is run. I mean, you can look at the Chiefs, how, they were when Tyreek Hill first started off there. Now he's with the Dolphins and, the crazy offense they have with all the different motions and the runs. That's awesome to see. But I mean, every team now has a speed guy that you can work in. And with the Patriots, the only real speed guy that I can think of is Demario Douglas. And when he's been utilized, I think he's been great. I know he had that, costly fumble that Belichick benched him for, which I don't really agree with that. But then he comes back in this Cowboys game, has a really nice pickup on that first drive. I mean, he put like a spin move on a defender, like where he, like stepped off to the side, turned around and uh just juked the guy. And it was an amazing play. And I'm like, those are the type of guys we need to be trying to get for this team. It's not all about just like the star power and, always, being like the greatest hands, but just having the speed to be able to beat these DBs down the field. Like that's what you need to be looking for. And, Belichick he just doesn't see, you know, he just doesn't see success that way.
Yeah, and that's the
I,
unfortunate thing
I
that
think,
he
I think I,
really
I think I saw someone say like he's building a team like it's 1993.
yeah, and that's realistic because I think he's just trying to it's almost gotten to the point where he's trying to play chess while everyone else is playing checkers,
Yeah,
and I get it to a certain point.
that's the typical adage is he's trying to like make you seem like he's smarter. Like the whole Bill's playing chess, everyone else is like that's a
Like
typical
hammer the
line.
run while everyone else is like opening like going west coast and just like
Yeah, like
doing a
like
bunch of yeah.
like I think like I heard some talk radio guys discussing it, but I also heard it during the game where I think it was I think it was Greg Olson. He had mentioned on the broadcast, like, yeah, you don't really see guys running like these triple tight end, like the three tight end like sets anymore. Like it's, kind of surprising to see it. And it's like, yeah, because like the Patriots, they kind of have to run it. They just don't have these athletic receivers. Like obviously Kendrick Bourne is fast, and you have some guys that can make some plays, but it doesn't compare to these other teams.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part because realistically, is Kendrick Bourne even a number two on most teams? Like you, he's a fringe too.
I think if
He's
he
a
was,
fringe too.
I think if he's utilized correctly, he can be a two. But
That's
that's
the
the
thing,
issue.
though. That's the thing. If he's utilized correctly,
Yeah,
Bill
which
O'Brien's play calls haven't been up to par either.
no,
And
yeah, and that's something that frustrates me too because I really wanted Bill O'Brien to. I thought he'd be able to come in here, and I thought his offense and McDaniel's were similar enough that Mac would just be able to be like, all right, I'm back in rookie year mode. I can just go out and do what I need to do, and let's go for it. And I thought that was going to be how we'd start off the year, but obviously we didn't do that.
yeah, that's the part that sucks. But I do think that it is time for Bill Belichick to be put on the hot seat and really think because you can look back at the past seasons, like the year after Brady with the Cam Newton year. We were expected to, like not do well that year. Like as much as it got Cam Newton, it was hype, and you started to rebuild a little bit. Everyone knew, that year it would be okay if we didn't do much,
Mm,
and that was acceptable. Most of those games we could have won, we didn't. The squad that they had is kind of a miracle that we did as good as we did, to
yeah,
be completely honest.
No, that was
So
a pretty decent job by
right,
Belichick with
right.
the squad we had.
And then you go to the Mac Jones year, you make the playoffs, it's super great, it's awesome. Like it looks like we're finally starting to build for something, like come back against, like I think it was the Houston Texans that year. We made like a really nice comeback. We ended up
Yeah.
winning. And that got everyone really excited. And then Bill Belichick, for whatever reason, made that huge mistake last year and just and we just had a terrible year, take everything back. We're all the way back to where we were before almost like right after Brady era. We go it all the way that far back, and we were tarnished altogether, you
Yeah.
know. And here we are again, looking at the same thing. So I think realistically, Bill Belichick is officially on the hot seat, and you got to start looking for his replacement.
Fair
So
enough. Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I think I got a name for you right there. I think Gerard Mayo steps in.
yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, and John, something you mentioned was about seeing this team kind of lose games that they should have won. That's been the theme of the Patriots post Brady, in my opinion. Like, there's been plenty of games that this team has won, and had they done so, you could have a completely different look of this franchise after Brady's left. But I think there's even a compilation of, I think you sent it to me, of Mac Jones quote almost comebacks where like he has the ability to lead him back in the fourth quarter, and it's looking strong, and then just something goes wrong. Like the fumble against the Bengals, the fumble against the Dolphins, being up against the Cowboys, and then he throws a pick six, and then you have to get bailed out of that. There's been so many plays where the Patriots have been in the position to go on and beat a pretty quality opponent or even come back against one, and they just shoot themselves in the foot. And it just really shows like how well you had it when Tom Brady was here, because maybe you're just kind of still used to believing, we're down in the fourth quarter, no worries, we got a guy back there. Oh wait, we don't have a guy back there anymore who can come and save us.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think I think it's adjusting to that and realizing like, oh, you don't have that automatic comeback just in your back pocket. Like, it's not there.
yeah.
And
Like they left 30 seconds on the clock. Okay, we're gonna come back and win this.
yeah, now you're saying like, ooh, like we're dead in the water. We have no time left. If like there could be 5 minutes on the clock, and we're like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
ooh.
it's like, yeah, even with 3 timeouts in the warning, like we're gonna be pushing this thing.
Yeah, and it's really just kind of sad, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it really does suck. So, uh, because like you're trying to make the defense play mistake free football, which eventually with these offenses, something's gonna eventually break through. And then yeah, like you're trying to again just be mistake free, which unfortunately like, this team just isn't. There's just that. I think what I'm going to end up titling this episode, John, is degree of separation, because that's what defines this team. Is I think if you had a competent quarterback, if this team was, in my opinion, more in tune, and the regiment was a little stronger with them, I think you could get a couple more of these wins. But in my opinion, they're just too immature. They just aren't ready for the situation yet. And I've been texting you guys this. I've said like Mac isn't ready for prime time. He isn't ready for this. And yeah, they just aren't ready to take that next step yet, which is the degree of separation. So if you're wondering about the name of the title for the episode today, that is why. But John, we discussed a whole lot of football news on the show today. I do want to switch some things up before we do go down to the wire. We will discuss some NBA news, but first I did want to take a moment and discuss something that had happened in baseball news over the weekend. Unfortunately, former Red Sox knuckleball pitcher and NESN broadcast analyst Tim Wakefield unfortunately lost his battle with brain cancer over the weekend. It was kind of a news story that we found out about very last minute. At least in comparison to the timetable of how much time Wake had left, because the way this played out was, I guess, in the middle of the week last week. Kurt Schilling went on his own personal podcast and announced to the world that Tim was battling from brain cancer and that his wife had pancreatic cancer, which obviously is an awful situation. And from all the reports, it seems that he did that without Tim's permission, which is really unfortunate. It's terrible to hear about. And even with that, though, I don't think people were prepared to have, to lose Tim within like the next 2 to 3 days. I think people were expecting, oh, he's battling cancer. Maybe it's a couple months, maybe it's a year. Who knows how long he has? Maybe it's going to be treatment and like he'll maybe make a statement. Like we thought like maybe this thing will like be played out for a little bit and people would be rooting for him. But to see him gone in just a couple days, even with, getting notification about it, it was still a surprise to everyone.
Yeah, it was extremely sad to the baseball world. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not very, very much, especially in Boston, that you
Yeah.
get such just like a guy on the team that
Yeah.
is consistent. I mean, he was with the Red Sox for over 10 years. I
Close to
mean,
20, close to
close to
20 years.
20. Like from our perspective, like, he was a centerpiece, honestly, of that '04 team. And
Yeah.
then along top of that, we kind of saw at least me and you kind of caught the end of his career in like 10 and 11. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just like looking back on it, it's incredibly sad just to lose such a legend like that. I mean, it's a great knuckleball pitcher. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's sick. Like
No,
you don't really see knuckleballers have that much success.
yeah, and what's amazing about it is that a lot of pitchers now they throw like a hybrid knuckleball. Like I think Garrett Cole, if I remember from MLB The Show, has like a knuckle curve, and like guys have like knuckle like sliders or things like that. But like that's just another pitch that these guys have in their arsenal and they use. Tim Wakefield was live or die by the knuckleball, and that was just his pitch because I think his fastball, I think some people said was like 76 miles an hour. It wasn't anything to really scoff at, but he could throw a 55-mile-an-hour knuckleball and he made you look silly, and like, he could
Yeah,
he could make some of the best major league hitters on the planet look like they've never done this before, which was kind of amazing to see. And he just from what I've heard, I've only heard like amazing things, that he was such a nice guy, did a lot of amazing things for the community. So that just obviously makes it a lot more sad. I know he did some works with the Red Sox Foundation, and as someone who's worked with the Woo Sox Foundation, doing some similar work to that, I kind of have a bit of an understanding as to some of the things he was doing, maybe with cancer awareness, with things in the community. So definitely have some admiration and respect for that as well.
right. Yeah,
But
it's definitely a sad day.
yeah. And then I guess the final thing I can say is like Tim Wakefield for me was part of like one of those like OG, like old school, like baseball players in my mind, like to where like in this era, like obviously like there were some guys that, I really resonated with, like Dustin Pedroia, David Ortiz, but Wakefield having as long of a career as he did and sticking around, I look at him and like Veritek and some of these other and like Martinez and some of these other pitchers in like a different light, to where I'm like, yeah, like these were kind of like my version of like the old school guys. And I really looked back on them like that. And I just thought like he was such a gamer. Like I really just thought
Yeah,
about him like that. And like now you see guys up with the team and you're like, oh, that guy's a kid or like whatever. Even Justin Turner, I'm like, yeah, he's like close to 40 years old now, but I saw him in his prime and like everything like that. By the time I saw Wakefield still being around, like he was up there in age, but he was still he was still grinding it out and doing his thing. And it was just kind of amazing to see.
right. Yeah, and it's definitely weird, especially in like an era of like 95-mile-an-hour fastballs and everything else.
100
Like
mile
it
an
was
hour.
even right, like even just like seeing this guy throwing like 50-mile-an-hour like curves, and he had one even slower.
Yeah.
Like he had like a slow knuckleball,
Yeah.
and it's just like crazy. And he had like a slow curve. I think it was like a slower knuckleball, and then he had like a like I think it was like 79-mile-an-hour fastball. But
Yeah.
if you're throwing 56 and you throw 79, it catches you.
Yeah.
And
It can make it'll look a lot faster.
right, so I mean, it's definitely really cool, and it was especially cool, like just like even as a kid, like just throwing like a knuckleball pitch and stuff, just knowing like it's so abstract and no one does it, but it's like
It's
stuff you do as a kid and just messing around. And the fact that he just really,
He mastered it
he,
because
yeah,
from looking back on it, he was a struggling infielder who was trying to make the big break into the big leagues, and he couldn't figure it out. And he said, "All right, like I have time. I'm in the minors. I'm gonna tinker with this pitch and try to figure it out." And he became one of the better throwers of it in MLB history. I mean, obviously you can look at guys like Phil Necro and all these different guys, but he was able to figure it out, which was really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely heartbreaking too, just like you added, because like he was such a big guy in the community. Like even when he got inducted in 2016, that was like a bigger part of it of why he got in. Not only the 19-year career and just being like a really good vet on these teams, but just
Well,
the
because
fact that like he stuck around and just stayed in the Red Sox community and just still
yeah.
was doing stuff like post like Poppy, like Veritas, like these guys are sticking around and just trying to be leaders and get these younger guys up. So
Well, yeah, because he wasn't, and what's crazy too is he became like a part of the city. He wasn't a Bostonian, but he by the end, like everyone kind of just associated him with the city. I think
right.
I think he was from Texas. I'd have to look that up.
I know he started with Pittsburgh, but I mean it's really cool. I mean, like just like looking back on
Oh,
everything
my
else. And of
my
course
apologies.
just
He's from Florida. Sorry.
right. But I mean, just looking back on all the stuff. It's sad to see a community guy go like that, especially so quickly and so soon and so
Yeah.
suddenly.
It was definitely unexpected. I originally told the other host of the show, Tyler Tucker, about the news, and he was shocked about it. And then on Sunday, he just texted me and said, "Hey, Wakefield didn't make it." I was like, "What?" Like, I had to look it up, and I was just like, it shocked me.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely sad.
Yeah. So obviously, definitely sad. Prayers up to the Wakefield family. Everyone with Red Sox, Nesson, all those guys that knew Tim and everyone well. Want to wish them well in this time. But before we do go down to the wire, John, I do want to transition really quickly and take a moment to discuss something that happened in NBA news. The Celtics on Sunday. It was a wild Sunday in terms of Boston sports news because you had the Patriots game, you had the loss of Tim Wakefield. And then the other big news that went down on Sunday in the Boston sports world was that the Boston Celtics went out and acquired Jrue Holiday from the Portland Trailblazers. Now, Holiday, last season had been with the Milwaukee Bucks, but following the Damien Lillard trade, he got sent out to Portland and now has been flipped over to the Celtics in exchange for Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, and then a 2024 first round pick from the Golden State Warriors and a 2029 first round pick, and then a 2029 first round pick. So some pretty late stage draft capital there. But then you're also losing some pretty decent players as well in Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams. So Brogdon, in my opinion, I had heard some people say that, after I believe it was the trade to acquire Porzingis involving Brogdon went down because that was the original deal. It was to get Malcolm. It was to trade out Malcolm Brogdon, bring in Kristaps Porzingis, and you were going to keep Marcus
Right,
Smart. What happened was that deal with the Clippers went sour because they didn't like Brogdon's physical. So they turned down the trade. The Celtics eventually decided to say, "All right, we'll trade Marcus Smart instead,"
right.
and that's how that trade went down. Now with Malcolm Brogdon going out in the deal, I figured that you weren't going to repair that relationship. The big loss for me though is Robert Williams because I've said it for so many years now in that the Celtics just don't have a good big man presence down low. And I get that you acquire the 7-footer in Porzingis, but I don't still see him as a traditional big man. I really wanted you to get like a really solid guy down there that could contest down low. And I just don't know if you have that right now. And, I like the offensive weapons you have, and listen, I love Jrue Holiday coming back. I think he's going to be great for this team, but I just feel like you're going to be like you're very weak in that front court right now, and I think that could hurt you.
Yeah, see, I'm actually on the complete other side of the ball with you. I'm kind of glad that we got rid of Brogdon because I realistically
I'm glad we
think
got rid of
that
Brogdon too. I think he's hurt, and I don't think we're going to make that back.
right, right, right. But I think honestly, getting rid of a injury prone Williams was a good thing. I mean, realistically, his knee's in shambles. He's never
Yeah,
going to get better from that.
I
He's
tend to agree.
playing 18, 20 minutes a game. Granted, he's putting up like 14 and 10 at that time, and
Yeah,
he's an elite defense player during that time, but that's 18 to 20 minutes a night.
yeah,
Porzingis, when healthy, is so much better than him, and then what he would ever be between that. Porzingis has a three ball. Porzingis was a top 5 rim protector last year when
hmm
he was healthy. Like Porzingis is such an underrated asset, and people forget that how good and how big the hype was of Porzingis going into draft night when he was drafted. Didn't really pan out with the Knicks. Really started to turn it up. Got injured a little bit, but then he bounced right back. And the thing is post injury, he's putting up the same numbers. It's not like there's a regression at all. There hasn't been a regression. So I think realistically with him and the Celtics, I think it was a little bit of a panic of oh crap, who's going to guard Dame? And Jaylen Brown can guard Dame pretty well.
You think Jaylen Brown can? Do you think Jaylen Brown's guarding Damian Lillard?
I think he could have, yeah.
No chance in hell he's guarding Damian Lillard.
Everyone
was clowning on Jaylen Brown's defense last year, John.
I still think Dame's a little bit overrated.
You can think he's overrated, but I just don't think everyone was talking about how Jaylen Brown can't guard and how he can't dribble. That was the entire discussion about Jaylen Brown last year. So I really disagree with that because everyone was clowning on Jaylen Brown and saying he can't guard, he can't do that.
I don't know. I think he realistically could. I mean, he got in the weight room. He's looked a lot better. I think realistically, if you got to put a body on him, I think you're putting Tatum or you're switching Tatum and Brown on him the entire night. And Brown's quick enough that he's going to really disrupt those lanes and Dame's not going to get a shot. I know Dame's going to hit those shots where he's guarded. And I mean, like all of the Heat's bench players were hitting that like all of those contested threes that they just kept hitting. It seemed like seamlessly, but adding in a guy like, Jrue, who is an X factor when it comes to those long, deep playoff runs, he's ridiculous. And it looks like we're going to have him probably for the rest of his career. It looks like the Celtics are working on extending him right now.
I mean, we'll have to see how that goes. But John, like Jrue Holiday is going to be on Damian Lillard.
Now he is, yeah. But I think realistically before that, I think that you were going to have to throw Brown on him and switch Brown and Tatum consistently. And I realistically think the reason we got him is because that's going to tire both of them out. Because who are you going to put on him? Peyton Pritchard?
No, the reason the reason they got Dame.
Who else are you going to do?
No, the reason they didn't do that was because Brown was going to get cooked. I think
Brown was going to get cooked.
I think
that's ridiculous.
I think he would have gotten cooked because he was getting cooked in the Miami series. He couldn't handle Jimmy Butler. He just wasn't.
Jimmy Butler's a good basketball player. And people forget about that.
And so is Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is arguably a better one. Like you can make a case for that.
Damian Lillard is not a better basketball player than Jimmy Butler.
For what?
Far.
If you're talking about around the perimeter, sure he is. If you're talking about around the perimeter, there's no debate. And and Damian Lillard's going to pull it from the logo every time. And the fact that he's going to be running around doing his thing. Yeah, sure. Can Jimmy Butler probably be more successful down low? I'll give you that. I can agree with that. But if you're talking about Jaylen Brown having to defend on the perimeter and run around, I think he is going to get cooked out there. I think he is going to be absolutely he's going to be out to lunch. He's not going to have a clue. So I think that,
I think that's a little crazy. I think you're underrating him because he's a dog, dude. I think it's going to be a dog fight, and I think Jaylen Brown has more dog in him than Dame would. I think realistically, I think Dame didn't even want to go to there. Like, no,
he didn't.
He was literally
for him. It was Miami or bust.
He said, "I'm not playing unless it's Miami," and they said, "All right, here's Milwaukee."
Yeah, no,
that's realistically what happened. Milwaukee takes it, gets Dame, is going to attempt a run. I don't think Milwaukee thought that the Celtics were going to get Jrue in order when this all happened. And I think the fact that the Celtics pulled off getting Jrue kind of scares the crap out of everyone else because with Porzingis and even with everyone, I think we had a realistically pretty good shot of beating the Bucks regardless of Jrue. And I think now that you had Jrue, I think it's almost a guarantee that if the Celtics seriously don't win the finals, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I think this team is so deep and so loaded that they have to. I mean, Jrue's an elite defender, can shoot. He's a really good, consistent three-point shooter on top of it. He has amazing defense, so much better than Marcus Smart. I mean, as much as we love Marcus Smart and as good as he is, I think realistically that year when it was Smart, and it was Jrue up for Defensive Player of the Year, Jrue probably edged them in a couple categories. Marcus Smart should have won it a couple of times. It's kind of like the MVPs when they kind of give them out like maybe a year or two after, being like, oh, my bad, you should have won it a couple of years ago. Here you go. You're still a really good player. They do that a bunch. And I think realistically, that was one of those years when Jrue could have snuck in a couple more. But
Yeah,
I just realistically think that with this team and what we have right now, we have the big guy. We have Al Horford, who realistically, I think has what I mean, like seriously, like we're pushing E right now on Al. I think we got about one more year in Al, and I think that's why they're throwing everything out there, because if Al's looking good, who can defensively lock up big man, we got Porzingis who could, he has a really good year. He almost has like that Bill Walton year on the Celtics where it's like you're pushing for one more. Like we're all in, man. Like this is
yeah.
it, and you're running with what you got right now. I mean, people are talking about how the bench is a little weak. I mean, you still got guys,
I
but
mean, I'm not even worried about the bench being weak because come the playoffs, that doesn't really even matter. Like
that's what
it's
yeah.
really about just having like a top 6, maybe 7 guys. After that, you're running these guys all game. So like that's not really even a factor for me. But yeah, I'm just concerned about down low. I think that sure Porzingis can guard down there and he can do his thing, but I think when you face off against a Giannis, I know Embiid, I'm really kind of like, kind of pumping the brakes on him because they just haven't been able to get over that hump in so long. And I'm just like, I feel like the 76ers are kind of going back to being a little bit stagnant now, but just in a more
I think if the
competitive way.
76ers can't win with two former MVPs and a head coach who's been to and won the NBA Finals, I don't know who can help them.
No, exactly. So I just don't think that they're going to be able to really do it. But I think Embiid, he's at least still going to be a presence down low. So I think that I think you just need to get someone who can battle down there. And I don't question Porzingis' scoring ability or, even some of his defense, but I just think that those guys are really gonna be able to pound down low and just, get baskets down there.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think Embiid can play like 48 minutes a night.
Hmm.
And I don't think Giannis can play 48 minutes a night as much as he's a freak, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think granted that it's really up to like, you got to have Jason Tatum MVP caliber season. Like he's due, he's been due. If he doesn't get it done this year, I don't know when we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
You really put in everything in the bucket. I mean, Brad Stevens did a great job building this team and getting it ready. And then you amp up those players that Jrue Holiday like is an amazing, amazing, super heavily underrated guy
Yeah.
in the NBA.
My only concern for him, and like because I listen again, I love Jrue Holiday. I think that he's going to be a good fit here. The only concern I have for him, and again, this isn't even a good comp, but I look at a player. Remember when Dennis Schroeder came into Boston and everyone kind of talked about like the potential he would have with Jason and Jalen and, as a potential bench option and using him in certain sets. And he just didn't really gel well. I wonder if that could be a potential thing with Jrue Holiday, but I don't really feel like it's the similar situation. But I was just getting kind of similar vibes to that when he got brought in. Obviously, it was a different situation, but it was just something I thought of was, is Holiday still going to be kind of demanding of his touches? And, he's a former all-star. Like, is he still going to be trying to vie for that and be like, hey, I still need to get my buckets because I'm still trying to be an all-star on this team. That's the only thing I wonder about.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever a personality problem with him. I
Yeah.
mean, people said the same thing with Brogdon coming in, because he was having those issues. But
Yeah.
I feel like the Celtics themselves are just a team that most people want to be on and want to gel with. And people understand and realize that we realistically brought this team, like this team has been being built for like ever since, we got Jaylen Brown, honestly. You had Jaylen Brown, you had Marcus Smart, traded away Marcus Smart to get the championship. You traded away a Williams. You traded away these guys you built up in the system. And you're really just banking around, Tatum, and you're banking around Brown. And now you got, one more piece of that. I think, White's going to have a tremendous year.
Yeah.
People forget about him. He only got better as the season went on. And then in
Yeah.
the playoffs, he turned it up. He saved the season a couple times. I mean, you got Porzingis, who's going to be a great asset. And I mean, I think the team really just meshes well together. I don't think you trade Al because I think that's that veteran presence who's been on and off these teams. Now seemingly is the veteran guy on the team. Him and Tatum, as much as he is young. And I think you really just you got a good squad and you're gonna push for it. I mean, Pritchard's a great option. He can give you 20. It's it's really just like a perfect situation, and you got to really just I'm really just excited and waiting just for the Celtics season to start so I can just see how they do when they come up against these big teams and when they start to get battle tested.
Yeah, John. I mean, I guess my closing thought on Holiday will be that he's the only one in that building that's won a ring. So he has that experience. He's gonna hopefully be able to go up to Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and say, "Hey, you guys obviously have the keys to drive this ship and take us over the hump, but I know what it takes. Listen to me, and I'm going to help get you there." I think that's some experience that the Celtics team really needed, because there really hasn't been anyone that's been able to provide that for them on this team, alongside maybe a couple of bench guys, but other than that, really no one. So
Right.
I'm glad that they're going to have that coming in. So looking forward to that. Hopefully they can get the job done. But John, unfortunately, I think that we are now officially down to the wire. So we're going to wrap up what we talked about on this show and send you guys on your way. It's been, obviously a long time since I did an episode, maybe past 2 weeks or so, but trying to get some more consistency back. Job's been crazy. School's been crazy, but we'll see how that goes. But if you guys do want to listen to our episodes when they come out, you can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. We also put this show on YouTube, and you can find all of those links in our Instagram bio at down.to-the-wire. We have plenty of updates and clips from the show on there as well. So make sure you go give that a follow. To kind of summarize the show, we talked about the Patriots loss to the Dallas Cowboys. It's the worst loss in the Bill Belichick era here for New England. So, back to the drawing board this week. We're going to have to see how they can fare against the Saints. In MLB news, we talked about the tragic passing of Tim Wakefield, and his life legacy throughout his playing career and outside of baseball, just in the city of Boston in general, and just everything he did for the community. So we discussed that, and then we closed off by talking about the Celtics acquiring Jrue Holiday from the Portland Trailblazers and Damien Lillard going to the Milwaukee Bucks. So John, really do appreciate you for having you on the episode. Thanks for giving me that call today and saying you wanted to rant.
Yeah, of course. The Pats suck. The Red Sox are gearing up for hopefully, we're looking young, we're looking good. And then Jaylen Brown, Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild fall and an even wilder winter. So look forward to having you back on at some point, John, to discuss all that. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
And I'm John Warren.
And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care. Peace out.